Hi, welcome to the Frugal Frau. I'm Sukey, your host, and today we're going to render bacon fat, which I have a whole large bowl, into lard for use in cooking and greasing pans, etc., etc. Now, the way I get my bacon fat is I purchase bacon ends because, well, they're actually cheaper than buying strips of bacon, and then I cut the excess fat off and I put that fat in a bag, and I either put it outside this time of year in a bucket because it will stay frozen, or if it's summertime I would have to put this in a freezer because it's much easier to chop when it's frozen, and you want to keep it fresh and from spoiling, obviously. So all I do is I take a clump and I start chopping it up into pretty tiny little pieces because that way it will render fairly quickly. And I will be rendering this upstairs on my wood stove since that's going already. And we're actually going to use this rendered fat, and it will turn into, well, it'll turn into lard obviously, but then the little leftovers turn into homemade bacon bits, or some people call them cracklings. But that will be really nice to have on top of our baked potatoes later today. And the baked potatoes are already baking in the wood stove oven, so I'm real happy about that. Now, this is how small I get it. I just want to show you this. Put it in my hands. And this is how small I get it. And what I'm going to do is simply chop up the entire pot, put it in there, and then we'll go upstairs. So I'll see you later after I get this all chopped up, and we go upstairs and we will render this. Oh, I finished my chopping up of all the bacon ends into small pieces, and I'm using one of my new spoons, and we did make a video about this spoon. Clips over the edge, just like that. So we're going to take this upstairs to render it, but I just wanted to show you how much I have in this pot, and it will render down quite significantly. And then we will strain it and place the cracklings onto a plate with absorbent paper towel underneath. And we're going to enjoy those on our baked potatoes later today. So I'll see you upstairs. But first, I need to check my potatoes because we're going to have these potatoes later today with the fresh bacon bits. I can't wait. They're not quite done, so I'm going to put them back in. All right, my wood stove is nice and hot, and I'm going to render my fat down here. And I have a trivet right here next to me in case I need to take it off, in case I'm getting it a little too hot. Now the trick here is to get it until it's all bubbly and there's lots of fat, and these things, or these little chunks, are turning golden brown. So that takes a bit, but I usually let it sit and I don't leave it for too long, just maybe a minute, because I want to keep stirring it, especially at the beginning, because at the beginning none of the fat has rendered off yet, so I don't want anything to really burn, especially since I'm doing this on a wood stove and I don't have total control of the heat. So I'm just going to keep stirring this, and when this starts getting near to the point of completion, I will come back and show that to you. All right, it's been about 10 or 15 minutes and my bacon is starting to bubble up now. So let me show you the bubbling, and let me get this off here. Is that good? All right, and it's going to bubble a lot more before it gets done, But I just wanted to show you that it does start rendering down. And you remember the pot was filled about halfway, and now it's taking up a whole lot less volume because it does render down. So don't be afraid to stuff your pot. And also note that you could be doing this with any kind of fat from any kind of meat. So if you had beef or lamb or anything else, goose, you could be rendering fat in a very similar manner. And I bet with the goose fat you could also have little goose bits or cracklings. I'm not sure how those would taste with beef. I myself am not fond of the flavor of beef lard or beef fat. But, or you know, if you had a fat deer, but I don't think they have too much fat on them. At least I've not seen a fat deer at this point. Wild boar, that would work too. Bison. Anyways, I'm going to keep stirring this, and when it's just about ready to come off, we'll come back and show you that process. Okay, my rendering bacon bits are rendering very nicely. You can see they've bubbled up quite a bit, and they're almost ready to take off, but I want to let them get a little more golden than that. So I'm going to keep stirring, and now when you get to this point where it's bubbling like this, you really need to just constantly stir it. And this will just take a few minutes and it will be completed. Now I have it on relatively high heat at this point because that will finish it up nicely. If you don't have it on high enough heat, these are not going to brown properly, but I want them to be brown so that when I drain them, they are nice and crispy. But if you can see how much it's bubbling at the end, and I will continue to stir. All right, so when this is done, we're going to take it downstairs, and I will see you down there, and we will separate the bacon bits from the lard. My potatoes are done. I'm just going to sit them on top of the stove to keep them warm until we can come up and have our baked potato bar with the freshly made bacon bits. All right. My fat is rendered sufficiently. I have browned the little bits of chopped up bacon ends, or simply bacon fat, pork fat. You can do the same thing with regular pork fat. And when I do that, I actually keep them separate because I want the bacon flavored lard to be in a separate container from just the regular pork flavored lard. Now, the way I like to separate this is put this here. I like to take this and get the main bits of liquid fat separated from that with this, and then a second draining with that. And I'll do this over this big pot because I'm trying to preserve as much of that lard as I can and get the fat as drained as much as I can. And then I simply dump it onto my paper towel lined plate here. And I like to use shop towels because they're very absorbent. So, and then when they're fully cooled, we will be enjoying them on our baked potatoes. So I just do a little bit at a time, and that way I can make sure I really get them well drained. And I know I'm not touching this pot because it's very, very hot. And so when you do this, be careful because hot fat can burn you quite badly. And once again, this smells absolutely wonderful. And you would think it would make more lard than it does, but really it takes quite a bit of these ends to make a bit of lard. I put out 3-pint jars, but I'll probably only fill one and maybe a portion of another. That's fine because I just constantly do this as I need it and as I collect it. I'm getting near the end of what I can easily scoop out of here. So I'm going to have to alter my technique slightly because I will have to use one hand on the pot and one hand on this. But that's why I put this extra dish here so I don't make a total mess. Because actually I don't really like being a total slob. That's about as much as I can get. Now, some people will drain this even further into cheesecloth or whatever, but I really don't find that that's necessary. It never bothers me if there's little bits of grainy pieces of crumbled or pulverized bacon bits at the bottom. I don't really care. But if that bothers you, you can also add your cheesecloth into that. So what I'm going to do is put that there, pick up my other pot holder, and let me see if I can do this and face you at the same time. So I have my strainer on top of my funnel. And there, that's enough for that one. And yeah, it's a bit of a messy job, and I spilled some, but hey, it's a kitchen. It's going to get a little messy at times. Let me put that there. I'll put the funnel in here, and there's not very much left to get. So, yeah, I need a pot. I need a big Dutch oven pot with a pour lip on it. That would be a handy dish, but I don't think I've ever seen one. But that sure would be nice to have, because I did make a bit of a mess there. And I will probably grab something and clean that up. Now, these I'm just simply going to let dry, or cool, not dry, just cool a bit. And I've got the grainy bits of bacon bits there. And you know what? I'll just put those to the side because I'm not going to waste them. And then these can all get washed. And there I have a little bit more than a pint from the amount of pork that I chopped up, or the amount of pork fat bacon ends. So I didn't weigh this, so I'm sorry I can't tell you exactly how much that was. I just usually get, when I get 2 bags, about this much each. So somewhere between a softball and a basketball. Then I figure, okay, that's enough. I can go ahead and render. So we will see you upstairs, and we'll show you our beautiful potato with our beautiful bacon bits on it. All right, we took a break, and this is how I served our wonderful bacon bits on top of baked potatoes with all the accoutrements. Okay, my lard is pretty much finished and rendered. It's not quite solidified. You can see it's still a little runny. It will, as it continues to cool, solidify. There's a slight warmth to it, so it's not really that hard, but it will harden, and if I put it in the refrigerator, it will get quite hard, and it doesn't need to be kept in the refrigerator. You can just keep this at room temperature in a cooler closet. I wouldn't keep it in the hottest cupboard that you have, or next to the stove or anything. And then these are just the leftover bacon bits, little crispy things that were left over from all the chopped up bacon and fat. So we had this on our baked potato and it was quite tasty, I'll say that. And we can have it either at breakfast with our eggs, or we can have it again on potatoes tomorrow. But I just wanted to show you that, and you can just keep it in the refrigerator. It's best to eat it pretty much in a day or two, because it doesn't really keep. It gets kind of yucky and soggy. But it was great on our potatoes, and there's a picture of that, of course, at the end of this video. And I hope that you enjoyed learning how to render fat just from bacon ends. It's a relatively inexpensive way to do it. And so please like, subscribe, and comment on my videos. I try to answer everybody's comments if I can, and I appreciate it. And if you have suggestions for future videos, you can put those in the comments too. So again, thank you all for being here, and I hope you enjoy the Frugal Frau.